Hey, 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 it's Thursday. Do you know what that means? That means I'm cooking. And so today in Mom's recipe book, we have top of the stove beef stroganoff. 1 large chuck roast cut into large strips. 1 can cream of mushroom soup. 1 large can of mushrooms with the juice. 1 small onion sliced. 1 small onion sliced. Oops, I diced mine. 1 clove of, 2 cloves of garlic diced, flour, salt and pepper, and cooking oil. So she says mix the flour and salt and pepper in a plastic bag. Now, if you were a good old mama, you'd be doing this in paper sack, but anyways, plastic bag. Or a bowl. Coat each piece of meat with the flour mixture. Heat oil in a large pot that has a tight-fitting lid. Then brown each piece of meat. Note, be careful not to use too high a heat because you do not want the flour on the bottom of the pot to burn. If you're making a big batch, brown part of the meat and put it on a separate plate while you are browning the rest of the meat. Drain off any excess fat from the pot, then return meat to the pot. Add onions and garlic and saute for a few minutes. Add the soup and the mushrooms and enough liquid to just barely cover the meat. Beef stock gives this dish a nice flavor. Mix well. Cover and simmer at lowest heat for about 2 hours, or if you prefer, you can put this in a low oven, 225 degrees, and allow it to cook like a stay-abed stew, about 6 hours. Serve over noodles or mashed potatoes. If gravy is too thick, add more liquid. Note, if gravy is too thin, mix a little flour and water to make a watery paste. Make sure all the lumps are gone and add to the gravy. Cook till gravy thickens. Okay, so that's what Mom says. Let's see how Penny handles it. Well, first of all, I got the chuck roast, and one of the things that helps you when you're cutting chuck roast into chunks is to make sure it's a little on the frozen side. You can manage it a little bit better. And I prefer to cut my meats on a plastic cutting board. That's just something that I do. So, anyways, so I've got my bag of flour, and I'm going to add my salt and pepper. Now, I'm going to add a generous clunk of salt. By the way, when I was trimming the meat, I trimmed off all of the fat pieces, and that's what I have going over here, just making some beef chicharrones. I'll throw those in a beans and have me a little snacky for later. And so I got the pepper. We're grinding up the pepper. Pepper, 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 and just a little bit more pepper. Okay, I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic salt because I like garlic salt, and you know, it adds a dimension. And because my mom didn't know about this, but I do, I'm going to add a little Creole seasoning. So you know, you can use Old Bay, you can use Tony's, whatever. I just happen to have this one. So just a little bit. You don't want a lot. And so we're going to mix up that flour, and then we're going to start putting our meat, because I don't have a lot of time, because, you know, I got to get to work. I'm going to use the crock pot, the Instant Pot for this one. So I've got the Instant Pot on brown, and I'm going to add the oil and let that heat up a little bit and get a little sizzly. And then we're going to start cooking up our meat. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got the Instapot on brown. I've got my oil nice and hot. I've coated my meat with flour, and now I'm just going to add a few at a time. Now, remember I mentioned that I cut off the meat, I cut off the oil, I cut off the fat from the beef, and I've been rendering it down. I used some of that oil in this pot so that we got that beef flavor going. So let's get a few of these going at a time. Not a lot of space on the bottom of this here Instapot. So we'll just kind of go for it. So I'll be back after this stuff's all browned. Okay, so we've browned our meat, and so as you can see in the pot, we've got like little bits of browned meat. So there's our browned meat, and there's our little browned bits. And so Mom says add the meat back, but I'm going to add the garlic and the onions first. And give them a chance to wilt just a tiny bit before we go on to adding the meat back in. So there's my small onion. Get that dug in. And then I have my 2 cloves of garlic chopped. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, this is a head of garlic. That's a head of garlic. A clove is each one of these little sections. So that's a clove of garlic. This is a head of garlic. Now, another little interesting tidbit. Notice how this one has roots? That means it's domestic. If it's imported, USDA requires that the root balls are cut off. And it reduces weight volume for shipping, believe it or not. So if it's got a root ball, it came from a local source. If it's got no root ball, who knows where it came from. But anyways, so we've got our onions and sauteing in there, and would help if I had it on browning. So we got that all going. We got our garlic going. We're going to cook this just a little tiny bit. I want to get some of those yummy flavors off of the bottom. I have my beef broth that Mom said to use, so I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to just put a tiny bit in there. And that's going to loosen up all of those nice little gravy bits that are in the bottom of the pan. Oh, that's looking lovely. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So now, she says, return meat to pot, add onions, garlic, and saute for a few minutes. Okay, so I'm going to saute for a few more minutes. I'm going to show you something. I just have to move you over. So, the easiest way, so when you're doing garlic, it has this tough outer crust on it that is very unpleasant. So to get that off, the easiest way is, let me see if I can get you so you can see this. Okay, you see how I have it flat on my cutting board? You take your knife, and if you're afraid of your knife, you can use your scraper. But just lay your knife on top and give it a little whack. And so what happens is it breaks off that skin, and then boom, you're left with a garlic clove. Now this is the stem end down here. So if you wanted to plant garlic, and it was organic garlic, because you can't do this with non-organic garlic, you can just stick it in the ground like that, and you'll get garlic in like 5-6 months. So you're going to cut off that end because it's unpleasant. If you are saving a scrap bag, you can have like a plastic bag, just fill it with all of your kitchen scraps, and eventually you can use that to make chicken veggie stock later on. So we're just going to give this a quick dice. And we're going to add it into this pot that we got going. Now, if you don't have chicken stock on hand, you can get away with using onion soup mix. It's going to give you the beef flavor as well. You just have to add water to it. And if you're like really lazy and don't want to go all through this, you can just use this stuff. I didn't tell you that. So, anyways. So, Mom says, where'd we go? Where'd we go? Oh yeah, we're over here now. Okay, hold on. Whoa, yay, I'm fine. Okay, so Mom says that wilt your onions, put your meat back in. We're going to put our meat back in. Ew, I had a little escaper there. Back where you belong. Okay, so we're going to get all those guys going. And so Mom says that drain off any excess fat from the return the meat to the pot, add the onion, saute for a few minutes, add soup and mushrooms. So the thing is, there's so many cream of whatevers, you know, so you can use this good old cream of mushroom. Since we're going to be adding additional mushrooms to this, yeah, that's a place you can go. But there's amazing fun things like cream of poblano. HEB even makes a cream of jalapeno. And trust me, that comes really good, especially when you're making things like ranch chicken, which my mom calls Guadalajara chicken. And that's in the cookbook at a later date. So we're going to add the mushroom. We're going to add the beef stock. See how a can goes. We might need a little bit more. So how much? Okay, just barely cover the meat. So we're going to need just a little more soup mix. Just barely cover the meat. Yeah, I think we could finish off that whole container. So we're stirring it up. So you can see what I'm doing in here. See, I'm stirring it up. I'm getting all those little bits, breaking up that cream of whatever soup. So we're just going to finish off this. And it's open. Might as well, right? I did try a piece of the meat a little bit earlier, and I did notice it wasn't that salty, but I knew I was going to use the beef broth, and I knew that beef broth has a lot of salt in it. So we should be right around good for flavoring in regards to this. So then she says, okay, mix well. Cover and simmer at lowest heat for about 2 hours, or if you prefer, you can put this in a low oven, blah, 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 allow to cook and stay with that stew. Okay, so I'm going to put my Instapot lid on. I've got it at airtight. And I'm going to put it on chili, which is about a 20-minute cook, which should give us a nice, soft, yummy meat. But it might be a little more, it might be a little less. I don't know, but I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Ta-ta for now. Oh, silly me, I was going through my ingredients and I realized that I did not put in the mushrooms. So, mushroom time. So, just throwing the mushrooms in there. You know, they're mostly cooked anyway, so it's not going to cause too much drama. But anyway, so yeah, so lid back on and back to cooking. Alrighty, so we're going to use our Instapot and we're going to put it back on chili. So we'll see you in a few. Okay, so we just have a couple of minutes left on the Instapot at the chili setting for 20 minutes. So that meat's just about done. But remember, when you're dealing with a pressure cooker, the pressure needs to come down before you can open it up. So we have like maybe about 8 more minutes of cooking to go for it to decompress. So over here, I've got my water at a good solid boil, and I've added a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt to that. Here's my beef chicharrones. Yeah. So for this particular recipe, what's really good is a wide egg noodle. So you see here it says extra wide egg noodle. And I'm going to just throw about like half a packet in it. And just give a little bit of a stir. Now, there's a couple of different schools on the best way to do pasta. The package says cook to 8 to 9 minutes. I'm going to cook this to 7 minutes, and there's a method to my madness. The reason for that is because we want things on what they call al dente, which is to the tooth. It's got a little bit of fight. So the pressure cooker just went off, so that means that we have about 5 minutes for it to decompress, because if you try to open it now, well, it's still at high pressure, you're going to get a steam bath, which is unpleasant. So I've turned my pasta water down to low. I'm just going to let this cook, And sometimes, depending on the pasta, like if it's a 4 to 6 minute pasta, I'll just put the lid on and I'll turn it off and just let the residual cook, the residual heat cook it up. And that's what I'm going to do in this case, because these noodles are very thin, so they're going to cook actually pretty quickly. So I'm going to leave them like that. Like I said, I want them a little on the underdone side, because when they get into the sauce and the gravy that goes with the stroganoff, then it's gonna, the starch, stop it. So the starch is going to add to the gravy and help thicken it up when we have a little bit of starch left in the pasta. So that's why we want it just a little bit underdone, so that when everybody cooks up all nice and happy, it all goes together and makes a wonderful, delicious, amazing sauce. So back to our pressure cooker. As you can see, it says that it's done, but I wanted to show you what happens if you try to open it up a little too early. So this knob here is what they call the exhaust, or the airtight. Right now it's set on airtight. So if I move it to exhaust, see all that? You got hot steam coming out. So that means that the contents are boiling. So you don't want to open anything that's boiling, because it's going to result in some pretty unhappy burns. So that's why you allow it to come down, unless you're in a super crazy hurry and you want to just kind of like keep on flipping it and flipping it back and forth and back and forth. But anyways, so that's basically it. So we've got the stroganoff, we've got the noodles, and hopefully I'll have enough time to show you the two of them put together. But right now I got to get ready for work. So we'll see you in a little bit, maybe. I hope so. All right, back in a bit. Okay, so we're to our last and final section of this beef stroganoff. So here is the beef, and as you can see, the meat is tender. We've got a nice gravy in there. We've got the mushrooms over here. We've got the noodles, which are a little bit undercooked. We're just gonna throw those in there. And I personally like peas in my stroganoff, but I'm not going to put that in the boys' stroganoff. I'm going to put this on crock pot and just leave it, and the boys will have something hot and wonderful to eat when they get home from work. So that's today's recipe, Mom's beef stroganoff. You can do it the slow way, you can do it in the oven, you can do it in the Instapot, whatever works. Remember, your kitchen, your rules. So until next time, don't forget to love ya, and ta-ta for now.